Good afternoon. I think I shall start with some figures and data to just pinpoint the importance of this panel. Africa and the Middle East has the youngest population in the world in terms of demographics. Africa's youth is its most powerful asset. Over 60% of the continent's population is under the age of 25, the youngest demographic in the world. By 2050, Africa's population is expected to double, with the majority under the age of 30, though creating an unprecedented wave of youth, tech-savvy, digitally literate individuals ready to drive the change in this very promising continent. Jean, thank you for joining me. And I shall ask you about the gap between where we want to head and where the youth or the African youth want to head and the actual situation on the ground. Can we really be talking about smart cities in Africa within the next 10 years?
No, thank you. Good to be with you and to speak about something which is very dear to my heart. Is the situation in Africa, in the cities, but also in the roads. You know, Africa is probably the most vulnerable part on the road, in the world for transportation. And incidentally, when we speak about cities and the way people are moving, and you just mentioned that by 2050 you will have 70% of the population living in the cities. I mean, we should speak about simple things like public transportation. And incidentally, the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, have two targets, one which is a 3.6, to halve the number of victims by 2030, and 11.2 to give access to public transportation. So I think, and it's something, when we spoke last night on the phone, we discussed we must be realistic, you know, and realistic is where is Africa now compared to the developed world? I mean, quite far behind. If you take...
Do you think technology wouldn't shorten this gap?
Would, but you know the problem when we speak about technology, again, we need to be realistic because the average of age of vehicles in Africa are between 25 to 50 years old age. You know what happens in a developed world? You can use a vehicle for only 7 to 10 years. And when you cannot use the vehicles in the developed world, what happens? The cars are going by boat to Africa and some other countries in Asia. So it's a big gap. Just to give you some figures, for 100,000 population in Europe, you have 5 deaths on the roads, compared to 30 deaths in Africa, so 6 times more. So, I mean, how can we get to a better situation? And in a way, how can we wake up a silent pandemic? You know, we never speak about road safety. Every year, 1.2 million people die on the roads. Between 40 to 50 million people are injured. Lots is occurring in cities. And simple things can make a difference. So I would say the first step, which is very important, is to make transportation safer for people to go to work and to come back to work. Then it's something which we don't speak never. It's not specific to Africa. It's specific to every city. It's traffic congestions. You know, how do we address that? And here, new technologies can have a significant role to play.
So Jean, when we talk about the African continent, we're talking about a big continent with different countries, different resources standing, different economic growth, different size, different growth. Which cities hold the biggest opportunity that can actually achieve an ecosystem for cities of the future?
In Africa, you mean?
Yes, in Africa.
I mean, in Africa, I would say probably the country in Africa which has been the most willing to make things changing is Rwanda. And, you know, I had the opportunity of discussing with President Kagame. And incidentally, it was to talk about helmet for motorbike. And I will just give you an anecdote. I was traveling a couple of years ago from Ghana, where the situation was very bad, to Cameroon, where the situation was very bad. And I arrived in Rwanda, in Kigali. And then I see police at each traffic light, quite people discipline, helmet. But I had a doubt. I had a doubt about the helmet, because helmet is absolutely essential, and in those countries they don't wear helmet. And if they do wear helmet, it's like glass, it breaks. So it's something I mentioned to President Kagame, and he took that on board. And early this year, we went to make sure that all the motorbike drivers and passengers will be equipped with a proper
So
standard
you think that
helmet.
road safety comes first, and we shouldn't be talking about smart cities today. But if we just discussed behind, when we were sitting together earlier, that the developed world should step in terms of investments and probably help the situation in Africa. How can that be achieved? Do you think private sector can look at an opportunity there and invest? Do you think government should get involved? How can we shorten this gap between what's happening in the developed world and where Africa would like to be as well?
It's a responsibility of everybody. You know, I think it would be unfair to say it's only linked to the government, but all the people involved should contribute to close the gap between what is happening in the developed world compared to what is happening in the developing world. So, I mean, if we speak about cities, it's about the design of the cities. It's, I mean, how we can make a safer city for children also. You know, I mean, children, we must be sure that they can go safely to school and come back to school. When you see pedestrian cross, you know, it does in a lot of countries in Africa, or it doesn't exist, or it is not accepted. So to build the cities, to make safer cities, and then to allow a better transportation for people.
How can African leaders get into a place where they can balance what's happening on the demographic side, a youth that is making a big percentage of the population in Africa, and most of them are tech savvy. The world is changing towards technology, and I think the situation there is not very far from what's happening around the globe. And the urge to do something about their cities. Do we develop what we have, or do we build from scratch cities?
You know, when you speak about technology, and we go back to vehicles, modern vehicles have a lot of technologies, and all vehicles do not have access to those technologies. So simple things will make vehicles safer, like electronic stability control. You know, electronic stability control is something which is compulsory in the developed countries. It is not in the developing world. So, I mean, to have access on better vehicles is something essential. And how the modern world can help is also on healthcare. You know, the situation, I've been visiting in Ethiopia one hospital for road traffic victims, and hospital has 210 beds. I ask the people, what is the occupancy rate? 110%. You know, so all that is working together. And I mean, talking about economic, it's a burden because it's a high cost. It's I mean, road traffic crashes are about 5 to 10% of the GDP of the countries.
Jean, our time is over, so quick question in 30-second answer. We've been a bit realistic throughout the conversation, me and you, but do we see potential in this very promising, fast growth continent?
I think, you know, the thing that we are able to talk about that is already a good step forward. And here, in this FIF forum, I mean, we have a diversity of representatives, and I think if they leave this event by thinking that much more can be done to make cities safer, roads safer, I think it will be a very important step.
Jean Todt, the Secretary General Special Envoy for Road Safety, United Nations, and of course, the famous face for Formula One. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jean.
Fatima, thank you very much. Sure.